Tinsel, trinkets, and treachery. At Sir Septimus Shale's grand country house, where Christmas cheer blankets every nook and cranny, a string of precious pearls has vanished faster than a mince pie in a hungry caroller's mouth. Lord Peter Wimsey, our intrepid sleuth, finds himself knee-deep in Yuletide shenanigans and upper-crust eccentricities. As carols echo through holly-decked halls and the aroma of roasting chestnuts fills the air, Whimsy must sort through a cast of characters more colourful than a box of Christmas crackers, with wit as sharp as icicles, and charm as warm as mulled wine. Whimsy races to solve the mystery before the last log on the fire turns to ash. Grab a cosy blanket and a steaming cup of cocoa. This Christmas puzzle is more delightful than finding an extra gift in your stocking. The Necklace of Pearls by Dorothy L. Sayers. Sir Septimus Shale was accustomed to assert his authority once in the year, and once only. He allowed his young and fashionable wife to fill his house with diagrammatic furniture made of steel, to collect advanced artists and anti-grammatical poets, to believe in cocktails and relativity, and to dress as extravagantly as she pleased. But he did insist on an old-fashioned Christmas. He was a simple-hearted man who really liked plum pudding and cracker mottos, and he couldn't get it out of his head that other people at bottom enjoyed these things also. At Christmas, therefore, he firmly retired to his country house in Essex, called in the servants to hang holly and mistletoe upon the cubist electric fittings, loaded the steel sideboard with delicacies from Fortnum and Mason, hung up stockings at the heads of the polished walnut bedsteads, and even, on this occasion only, had the electric radiators removed from the modernist grates and installed wood fires and a Yule log. He then gathered his family and friends about him, filled them with as much Dickensian good fare as he could persuade them to swallow, and after their Christmas dinner set them down to play charades and clumps and animal, vegetable, and mineral in the drawing-room, concluding these diversions by hide-and-seek in the dark all over the house. Because Sir Septimus was a very rich man, his guests fell in with this invariable programme, and if they were bored, they did not tell him so. Another charming and traditional custom which he followed was that of presenting to his daughter Margarita a pearl on each successive birthday, this anniversary happening to coincide with Christmas Eve. The pearls now numbered 20, and the collection was beginning to enjoy a certain celebrity, and had been photographed in the society papers. Though not sensationally large, each one being about the size of a marrow-fat pea, the pearls were of very great value. They were of exquisite colour and perfect shape, and matched to a hair's weight. On this particular Christmas Eve, the presentation of the 21st pearl had been the occasion of a very special ceremony. There was a dance, and there were speeches. On the Christmas night following, the more restricted family party took place, with the turkey and the Victorian games. There were 11 guests, in addition to Sir Septimus and Lady Shale, and their daughter, nearly all related or connected to them in some way. John Shale, a brother with his wife and their son and daughter Henry and Betty. Betty's fiancé, Oswald Trugood, a young man with parliamentary ambitions. George Comfrey, a cousin of Lady Shale's, aged about 30 and known as a man about the town. Lavinia Prescott, asked on George's account. Joyce Trivett, asked on Henry Shale's account. Richard and Beryl Denison, distant relations of Lady Shale, who lived a gay and expensive life in town on nobody precisely knew what resources. And Lord Peter Wimsey, asked in a touching spirit of unreasonable hope on Margarita's account. There were also, of course, William Norgate, secretary to Sir Septimus, and Miss Tomkins, secretary to Lady Shale, who had to be there because, without their calm efficiency, the Christmas arrangements could not have been carried through. Dinner was over. A seemingly endless succession of soup, fish, turkey, roast beef, plum pudding, and mince pies, crystallized fruit, nuts, and 5 kinds of wine. presided over by Sir Septimus, all smiles, by Lady Shale, all mocking deprecation, and by Margarita, pretty and bored, with the necklace of 21 pearls gleaming softly on her slender throat. Gorged and dyspeptic, and longing only for the horizontal position, the company had been shepherded into the drawing-room and set to play musical chairs, Miss Tomkins at the piano, Hunt the Slipper provided by Miss Tomkins, and Dumb Crambo, costumes by Miss Tomkins and Mr. William Norgate. The back drawing-room, for Sir Septimus clung to these old-fashioned names, provided an admirable dressing-room, being screened by folding doors from the large drawing-room, in which the audience sat on aluminium chairs, scrabbling uneasy toes on a floor of black glass under the tremendous illumination of electricity reflected from a brass ceiling. It was William Norgate who, after taking the temperature of the meeting, suggested to Lady Shale that they should play at something less athletic. Lady Shale agreed, and, as usual, suggested bridge. Sir Septimus, as usual, blew the suggestion aside. "Bridge? Nonsense, nonsense! Play bridge every day of your lives. This is Christmas time. Something we can all play together. How about animal, vegetable, and mineral?" This intellectual pastime was a favourite with Sir Septimus. He was rather good at putting pregnant questions. After a brief discussion, it became evident that this game was an inevitable part of the programme. The party settled down to it, Sir Septimus undertaking to go out first and set the thing going. Presently they had guessed, among other things, Miss Tomkins's mother's photograph, a gramophone record of "I Want to Be Happy," much scientific research into the exact composition of records settled by William Norgate out of the Encyclopaedia Britannica, the smallest stickleback in the stream at the bottom of the garden, the new planet Pluto, the scarf worn by Mrs. Denison, very confusing because it was not silk, which would be animal, or artificial silk, which would be vegetable, but made of spun glass, mineral, a very clever choice of subject, and had failed to guess the Prime Minister's wireless speech, which was voted not fair, since nobody could decide whether it was animal by nature or a kind of gas. It was decided that they should do one more word and then go on to hide-and-seek. Oswald Trugood had retired into the back room and shut the door behind him while the party discussed the next subject of examination, when suddenly Sir Septimus broke in on the argument by calling to his daughter, "Hello, Margie, what have you done with your necklace?" "I took it off, Dad, because I thought it might get broken in Dumb Crambo. It's over here on this table." "No, it isn't." Did you take it, Mother?" "No, I didn't. If I'd seen it, I should have. You are a careless child." "I believe you got it yourself, Dad. You're teasing." Sir Septimus denied the accusation with some energy. Everybody got up and began to hunt about. There were not many places in that bare and polished room where a necklace could be hidden. After 10 minutes' fruitless investigation, Richard Denison, who had been seated next to the table where the pearls had been placed, began to look rather uncomfortable. "Awkward, you know," he remarked to Whimsy. At this moment, Oswald Trugood put his head through the folding doors and asked whether they hadn't settled on something by now, because he was getting the fidgets. This directed the attention of the searchers to the inner room. Margarita must have been mistaken. She had taken it in there, and it had got mixed up with the dressing-up clothes somehow. The room was ransacked. Everything was lifted up and shaken. The thing began to look serious. After half an hour of desperate energy, it became apparent that the pearls were nowhere to be found. "They must be somewhere in these 2 rooms, you know," said Whimsy. "The back drawing-room has no door, and nobody could have gone out of the front drawing-room without being seen, unless the windows." No, the windows were all guarded on the outside by heavy shutters, which it needed 2 footmen to take down and replace. The pearls had not gone out that way. In fact, the mere suggestion that they had left the drawing-room at all was disagreeable, because it was William Norgate, efficient as ever, who coldly and boldly faced the issue. "I think, Sir Septimus, it would be a relief to the minds of everybody present if we could all be searched." Sir Septimus was horrified. But the guests, having found a leader, backed up Norgate. The door was locked, and the search was conducted, the ladies in the inner room and the men in the outer. Nothing resulted from it, except some very interesting information about the belongings habitually carried about by the average man and woman. It was natural that Lord Peter Wimsey should possess a pair of forceps, a pocket lens, and a small folding foot rule. Was he not Sherlock Holmes in high life? But that Oswald Trugood should have 2 liver pills and a screw of paper, and Henry Shale a pocket edition of the Odes of Horace, was unexpected. Why did John Shale distend the pockets of his dress suit with a stump of red sealing wax, an ugly little masket, and a 5-shilling piece? George Comfrey had a pair of folding scissors and 3 wrapped lumps of sugar, of the sort served in restaurants and dining cars, evidence of a not uncommon form of kleptomania. But that the tidy and exact Norgate should burden himself with a reel of white cotton, 3 separate lengths of string, and 12 safety pins on a card seemed really remarkable, till one remembered that he had superintended all the Christmas decorations. Richard Denison, amid some confusion and laughter, was found to cherish a lady's garter, a powder compact, and half a potato. The last named, he said, was a prophylactic against rheumatism to which he was subject, while the other objects belonged to his wife. On the ladies' side, the more striking exhibits were a little book on palmistry, 3 invisible hairpins, and a baby's photograph, Miss Tomkins, a Chinese trick cigarette case with a secret compartment, Beryl Denison, a very private letter, and an outfit for mending stocking ladders, Lavinia Prescott, and a pair of eyebrow tweezers and a small packet of white powder, said to be for headaches, Betty Shale. An agitating moment followed the production from Joyce Trivett's handbag of a small string of pearls, but it was promptly remembered that these had come out of one of the crackers at dinner-time, and they were, in fact, synthetic. In short, the search was unproductive of anything beyond a general shamefacedness and the discomfort always produced by undressing and redressing in a hurry at the wrong time of the day. It was then that somebody, very grudgingly and haltingly, mentioned the horrid word police. Sir Septimus naturally was appalled by the idea. It was disgusting. He would not allow it. The pearls must be somewhere. They must search the rooms again. Could not Lord Peter Wimsey, with his experience of mysterious happenings, do something to assist them? Eh? Said his lordship. Oh, by Jove, yes. By all means, certainly. That is to say, provided nobody supposes... what? I mean to say, you don't know that I'm not a suspicious character, do you? What? Lady Shale interposed with authority. We do not think anybody ought to be suspected, she said, but if we did, we'd know it couldn't be you. You know far too much about crimes to want to commit one. All right, said Whimsy, but after the way the place has been gone over... He shrugged his shoulders. Yes, I'm afraid you won't be able to find any footprints, said Margarita, but we may have overlooked something. Whimsy nodded. I'll try. Do you all mind sitting down on your chairs in the outer room and staying there? All except one of you. I'd better have a witness to anything I do or find. Sir Septimus, you would be the best person, I think. He shepherded them to their places and began a slow circuit of the 2 rooms, exploring every surface, gazing up to the polished brazen ceiling, and crawling on hands and knees in the approved fashion across the black and shining desert of the floors. Sir Septimus followed, staring when Whimsy stared, bending with his hands upon his knees when Whimsy crawled, and puffing at intervals with astonishment and chagrin. Their progress rather resembled that of a man taking out a very inquisitive puppy for a very leisurely constitutional. Fortunately, Lady Shale's taste in furniture made investigation easier. There were scarcely any nooks or corners where anything could be concealed. They reached the inner drawing-room, and here the dressing-up clothes were again minutely examined, but without result. Finally, Whimsy lay down flat on his stomach to squint under a steel cabinet, which was one of the very few pieces of furniture which possessed short legs. Something about it seemed to catch his attention. He rolled up his sleeve and plunged his arm into the cavity, kicked convulsively in the effort to reach farther than was humanly possible, pulled out from his pocket and extended his folding foot rule, fished with it under the cabinet, and eventually succeeded in extracting what he sought. It was a very minute object, in fact, a pin. Not an ordinary pin, but one resembling those used by entomologists to impale extremely small moths on the setting board. It was about 3/4 of an inch in length, as fine as a very fine needle, with a sharp point and a particularly small head. "Bless my soul," said Sir Septimus, "what's that?" "Does anybody here happen to collect moths or beetles or anything?" asked Whimsy, squatting on his haunches and examining the pin. "I'm pretty sure they don't," replied Sir Septimus. "I'll ask them." "Don't do that." Whimsy bent his head and stared at the floor, from which his own face stared meditatively back at him. "I see," said Whimsy presently. "That's how it was done." "All right, Sir Septimus, I know where the pearls are, but I don't know who took them. Perhaps it would be as well, for everybody's satisfaction, just to find out. In the meantime, they're perfectly safe. Don't tell anyone that we found this pin or that we've discovered anything. Send all these people to bed. Lock the drawing-room door and keep the key, and we'll get our man, or woman, by breakfast time." "God bless my soul," said Sir Septimus, very much puzzled. Lord Peter Wimsey kept careful watch that night upon the drawing-room door. Nobody, however, came near it. Either the thief suspected a trap, or he felt confident that any time would do to recover the pearls. Whimsy, however, did not feel that he was wasting his time. He was making a list of people who had been left alone in the back drawing-room during the playing of animal, vegetable, and mineral. The list ran as follows: Sir Septimus Shale, Lavinia Prescott, William Norgate, Joyce Trivett, and Henry Shale, together because they had claimed to be incapable of guessing anything unaided, Mrs. Denison, Betty Shale, George Comfrey, Richard Denison, Miss Tomkins, Oswald Trugood. He also made out a list of the persons to whom the pearls might be useful or desirable. Unfortunately, this list agreed in almost all respects with the first, always excepting Sir Septimus, and so was not very helpful. The two secretaries had both come well recommended, but that was exactly what they would have done had they come with ulterior designs. The Denisons were notorious livers from hand to mouth. Betty Shale carried mysterious white powders in a handbag, and was known to be in with a rather rapid set in town. Henry was a harmless dilettante, but Joyce Trivett could twist him round her little finger, and was what Jane Austen liked to call expensive and dissipated. Comfrey speculated. Oswald Trugood was rather frequently present at Epsom and Newmarket. The search for motives was only too fatally easy. When the second housemaid and the under-footman appeared in the passage with household implements, Whimsy abandoned his vigil, but he was down early to breakfast. Sir Septimus with his wife and daughter were down before him, and a certain air of tension made itself felt. Whimsy, standing on the hearth before the fire, made conversation about the weather and politics. The party assembled gradually, but, as though by common consent, nothing was said about pearls until after breakfast, when Oswald Trugood took the bull by the horns. "Well now," said he, "how's the detective getting along? Got your man, Whimsy?" "Not yet," said Whimsy easily. Sir Septimus, looking at Whimsy as though for his cue, cleared his throat and dashed into speech. "All very tiresome," he said. "All very unpleasant. Nothing for it but the police, I'm afraid. Just at Christmas, too. Spoilt the party. Can't stand seeing all this stuff about the place." He waved his hand toward the festoons of evergreens and coloured paper that adorned the walls. "Take it all down, eh, what? No heart in it. Burned the lot." "What a pity when we worked so hard over it," said Joyce. "Oh, leave it, uncle," said Henry Shale. "You're bothering too much about the pearls. They're sure to turn up." "Shall I ring for James?" suggested William Norgate. "No," interrupted Comfrey. "Let's do it ourselves. It'll give us something to do to take our minds off our troubles." "That's right," said Sir Septimus. "Start right away. Hate the sight of it." He savagely hauled a great branch of holly down from the mantelpiece and flung it, crackling, into the fire. "That's the stuff," said Richard Denison. "Make a good old blaze." He leapt up from the table and snatched the mistletoe from the chandelier. "Here goes. One more kiss for somebody, before it's too late. Isn't it unlucky to take it down before the new year?" suggested Miss Tomkins. "Unlucky be hanged. We'll have it all down, off the stairs and out of the drawing-room too. Somebody go and collect it." "Isn't the drawing-room locked?" asked Oswald. "No, Lord Peter says the pearls aren't there, wherever else they are, so it's unlocked. That's right, isn't it, Whimsy?" "Quite right. The pearls were taken out of these rooms. I can't tell yet how, but I'm positive of it. In fact, I'll pledge my reputation that wherever they are, they're not up there." "Oh, well," said Comfrey, "in that case, have at it. Come along, Lavinia. You and Denison do the drawing-room, and I'll do the back room. We'll have a race." "But if the police are coming in," said Denison, "oughtn't everything to be left just as it is?" "Damn the police!" shouted Sir Septimus. "They don't want evergreens." Oswald and Margarita were already pulling the holly and ivy from the staircase amid peals of laughter. The party dispersed. Whimsy went quietly upstairs and into the drawing-room, where the work of demolition was taking place at a great rate. George, having bet the other two 10 shillings to a tanner that they would not finish their part of the job before he finished his. "You mustn't help," said Lavinia, laughing to Whimsy. "It wouldn't be fair." Whimsy said nothing, but waited till the room was clear. Then he followed them down again to the hall, where the fire was sending up a great roaring and spluttering, suggestive of Guy Fawkes' night. He whispered to Sir Septimus, who went forward, and touched George Comfrey on the shoulder. "Lord Peter wants to say something to you, my boy," he said. Comfrey started and went with him a little reluctantly, as it seemed. He was not looking very well. "Mr. Comfrey," said Whimsy, I fancy these are some of your property." He held out the palm of his hand, in which rested 22 fine small-headed pins. "Ingenious," said Whimsy, "but something less ingenious would have served his turn better. It was very unlucky, Sir Septimus, that you should have mentioned the pearls when you did. Of course, he hoped that the loss wouldn't be discovered till we chucked guessing games and taken to hide-and-seek. Then the pearls might have been anywhere in the house. We shouldn't have locked the drawing-room door, and he could have recovered them at his leisure. He had this possibility in his mind when he came here, obviously. And Miss Shale's taking off the necklace to play dumb crambo gave him his opportunity. He had spent Christmas here before, and knew perfectly well that animal, vegetable, and mineral would form part of the entertainment. He had only to gather up the necklace from the table when it came to his turn to retire, and he knew he could count on at least 5 minutes by himself, while we were all arguing about the choice of a word. He had only to snip the pearls from the string with his pocket scissors, burn the string in the grate, and fasten the pearls to the mistletoe with the fine pins. The mistletoe was hung on the chandelier, pretty high. It's a lofty room, but he could easily reach it by standing on the glass table, which wouldn't show footmarks, and it was almost certain that nobody would think of examining the mistletoe for extra berries. I shouldn't have thought of it myself if I hadn't found that pin which he'd dropped. That gave me the idea that the pearls had been separated, and the rest was easy. I took the pearls off the mistletoe last night. The clasp was there too, pinned among the holly leaves. Here they are. Comfrey must have got a nasty shock this morning. I knew he was our man when he suggested that the guests should tackle the decorations themselves, and that he should do the back drawing-room. But I wish I had seen his face when he came to the mistletoe and found the pearls gone." "And you worked it all out when you found the pin?" said Sir Septimus. "Yes, I knew then where the pearls had gone to." "But you never even looked at the mistletoe?" "I saw it reflected in the black glass floor, and it struck me then how much the mistletoe berries looked like pearls."
If you like that story, consider supporting me as a patron. That way you help me make more stories for you and get access to a patrons-only library of stories. Lots more hours for you to listen to.
First of all, never apologise, and if you do have to apologise, do not sully that apology with an excuse. So I'd just like to apologise for doing a second Dorothy L. Sayers within a few weeks, but my excuse is that I was looking for a Christmas detective story. We've already done one Christmas detective story, but I'm piling them on. This is probably the last story I'm going to do before Christmas. So, and also I've got a cold, which you may hear, and so possibly I shouldn't have done it because of the nasal quality of my narration. But I did because I've got this insane work drive. If I hadn't done it, I would have just fretted. I wouldn't have slept. I've got to keep pumping out the content. I don't know why. Makes no sense really. Anyway, enough of that. I think Dorothy was a bit like that, to be fair. So I'm going to tell you about her in case you didn't know. So Dorothy, one of my faves, her and Agatha. In fact, the three queens of crime have a very special place in my heart. So Dorothy L. Sayers, born 1893. She was a prolific writer, and she was a scholar. Sometimes people don't listen to the commentaries. Can you believe that? And they make a point in the comments that I'm like, yeah, I said that in the commentary. But you didn't listen to it, did you? Sorry. No need for that. This cold's possibly making me a little grumpy. Or I'm just grumpy anyway. But there we are. You judge for yourself. So she was a scholar. She attended Somerville College, Oxford, and achieved a first-class honours degree in 1915, but she was not awarded the degree because the university did not award degrees to women at the time. I'm just doing a little pause for boos and hisses and people slamming their mugs of cocoa, because you had a lovely time so far, haven't you? It's been very, very sweet, and you're just waiting for this, cozy, 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 and I've just told you that. And many of you people out there, I shouldn't call you people, it sounds rather rude. I don't mean that. Many people who listen will just be slamming that cocoa. They've nearly finished it, and the bottom would jump out and it'd go all over the table. And the dog would lick it up if you've got a dog, or your husband if you've got a husband. Anyway, so there we are. So I'm sorry about that, but another excuse. It wasn't me that did it. We know. She studied medieval literature, and she was a big fan of Dante Alighieri, who was a famous Italian poet, in case you didn't know, which I'm sure you did. And she translated the Divine Comedy for Penguin Classics, and then wrote the highly acclaimed book, The Mind of the Maker, in 1941. She was a clever person. After being refused her degree, I mean, she wasn't the only one, but doesn't make it any better. And she went and worked in advertising, and you can tell in her turn of phrase, she is the mistress of sharp and witty pose. She's reminding me of Dorothy Parker a little bit, who was also a great witticist. But so you can see it in some of the turns of phrase that she has. So she was behind Coleman's mustard. It's an English mustard. It's kind of orange and is really, really hot. It's American mustard is really tame compared with English mustard. You can slather American mustard on your hot dog, but if you put English mustard in the same degree of slather on your roast beef, your head's going to blow off. And it goes right up your nose. It's a bit like wasabi, which of course is the same family, I think. Or is that horseradish? No, it's horseradish family. No, I'm completely mixed up. I blame the cold. Another excuse. Yes, horseradish that goes up your nose. Mustard just blows your head off. So, and Guinness beer. I think she was responsible for the toucan advertising thing, which became really, Guinness is good for you. I like a pint of Guinness. I haven't been drinking much recently for months, but it's Christmas now, so I might have a pint of Guinness. So she wrote Murder Must Advertise based on her advertising career with Lord Peter Wimsey. So Lord Peter Wimsey was created by her in 1923. Let's work out how old she was. She was 30. And this story here was published in 1933. So 10 years later after it. So Lord Peter Wimsey was established. Now, one thing I did notice in this one is in earlier stories, or quite often, Lord Peter Wimsey has this upper-class affectation of dropping the G's. And this was not an uncommon thing, and it was made fun of in magazines like Punch and things like that, that the upper class would be hunting, shooting, fishing. So I did this, but she's not done it here. He doesn't speak like that here, but in the earlier books he does. And when I did it, people comment that I'm No, you don't pronounce that very well. You're not very convincing. I'm like, she wrote it like this. Anyway, never mind. She didn't in this one. It was a very sweet. I have been to more English country house Christmases than I've had hot dinners, and I've had. We have to work that one out, but maybe it's up there. I've had Christmas dinners, and if you the Ghost Story channel at Christmas, they're always in these country houses. Detectives, especially E.F. Benson, he's always there. But a lot of them are from that kind of. They got invited to country houses. I told you once. I told you before, I think. There was a lass I worked with once called Catherine Gray, who's from Doncaster. And we were walking along with some friends of ours, and we were all going, oh, the 1930s. I think I'd just been reading, not Oberon War, but his dad, who is very, very funny. My mind, my cold brain, Brideshead Revisited, but it isn't particularly funny, but like White Mischief and all of those, Scoop, all of those. And the one about the teacher. Anyway, so very funny. We were talking about those. Jeeves and Worcester as well, not the same guy, P.G. Woodhouse, but all these country house weekends that people went to. And Catherine looked at me and she said, listen, Tony, if you were to go to a country house, you'd be cleaning up. And this is true. But even so, wouldn't it be lovely? And then, of course, when we went on these murder mysteries, we did a lot of horror murder mysteries, and we used to hire out big houses to do them in. And so, in a sense, I pretended to be people there. That was a long time ago. Anyway, and aren't they lovely? I'd love to go to one. As long as I've just done a Poirot, as you know, because you probably listened, The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding. And Poirot is with me, and he wants the radiators to work. And we want the country house, but we don't want it to be cold. It reminds me of another anecdote. Years ago, when I was doing these murder mysteries, there was a place we used to use a lot in Ireland, in County Offaly, called Charleville Castle, and it was being renovated slowly by volunteers, and it was owned by somebody Connor. I can't remember her name. My memory's shot. And she was from Boston, and she'd come back with a bit of money, and I don't know if she was married to Dudley, but he was a local Irish guy. And they used to you could go and stay there. You could go and kind of hide out from the law. And as long as and I remember looking out at the window, and there's people on the roof who are clearly not roofers. They just kind of turned up, and they give them a hammer and some slates, and up they go on this massive castle roof. But anyway, so we used to do these murder mysteries, and you can imagine it was built in the 1700s. I think the plumbing had been improved a little bit, but it had old towers and circular tower rooms. It was fantastic, still is. I haven't been back for many years, but I imagine it's slightly more renovated now, or maybe not. I saw a ghost cat there, but that's another story. But it was a fantastic place, and I remember we had a group of people coming for the murder mystery, and everybody turned up, and there was one lady who complained about, was there a lift? I go, yeah, an elevator. No, there isn't. They didn't have them in 1800. And the plumbing wasn't to her standards, so she created such a fuss and embarrassed the guy who was with. He seemed really embarrassed, and she stormed off. She demanded her money back, and she tried to incite a peasants' revolt and to get everybody else to... it was really interesting exercising groupthink, because... as she was there, and everybody's kind of stirring, and yes, and they're all kind of joining in about, well, it is a bit drafty. Well, yeah, it is. It's a flipping Irish castle. And it's not the Marriott Hotel or, in your local town. This is an ancient, well, fairly ancient, but certainly historic, half-renovated castle in Ireland, which you're paying for the vibe, man. But they were all about to demand their money back, and I thought, oh dear, I am stuffed. Where am I? I mean, my business at that time was a real shoestring and affair, and I'm like, oh no, I'm ruined. Anyway, she stormed off with her husband, and everybody else afterwards was, oh, it's all right, we like it really. But when she was there, they were kind of making similar noises to her, but as soon as she left, they became really nice. There we go. I don't know how... Oh, we're talking about country house weekends. I guess I'm doing this because the story itself is slight, isn't it? It's sweet. It's there for the vibe. It's there for the eccentric characters. It's there for the... I mean, that whole thing about what they have in their pockets is really funny. And I wondered if some of it was going to need a glossary. I don't know if people play animal, vegetable and mineral. We certainly did. It reminds me of my Christmas family do's when we were younger. And all that thing about the silk scarf, trying to work out whether that's absolutely the kind of thing that happened if you've played it. And So there was a lot of that, and I thought this is maybe perhaps a little bit um, Anglo-centric in that. But I don't know. Maybe people play all these games elsewhere, and maybe other countries have, the things they were doing are recognizable. I hope they were funny. I mean, I think possibly there were too many characters for the story. I suppose the reason she did that was to have a number of because they have speaking parts, but it's really hard to differentiate them. We have the 21-year-old rather spoiled Margarita, who is there. Apparently, Whimsy's there, her potential love interest. I'm not sure how old Whimsy was at this time, but he wasn't 21. But we say the guy at the beginning, Sir Septimus Shale's wife, who is a cubist, very 1930s, isn't it? And with all that awful stuff, all that black glass and aluminum. So yeah, he married a much younger woman. I guess this was their custom. So let's not get too upset about that. Really, it's not worth it. So there we are. It was really super fun, and I really liked it. And excusing myself again, I only did another one because it was Christmas. But I'm not sorry not sorry, because she's such a funny writer, and Agatha is as well. I think Agatha isn't necessarily as straight on funny, but Agatha's pretty witty. But you can see why they got this reputation. They absolutely deserved it as the queens of crime. They were really, really funny. The new year will come. I don't know what I'm going to do. I may try and get one out for New Year. Depends how I feel. I'm sinking fast, and as you know, when men get a cold, it's far, far more serious than women do. I'm probably going to have to retreat to my bed and have a little bell beside my bed, and in a weak voice, Sheila, could I have a cup of tea? And then maybe and a mince pie. I have a tremendous weakness for mince pies, but Have I had one this year? Oh man, I went through one year. I did a one-man tasting exercise. I was going around tasting all these different supermarkets and bakers' mince pies to see which was the best. And usually they sell them in a packet of 12 or something. So I'd try and get other people to eat some of them, but secretly I'd eat lots of mince pies. I think I put on about a stone. And there we are. That's it. I'm going to go and cough somewhere now. I hope you're all well. It was funny, I think. And, just a shortish one. But you can't have long ones all the time. Go and listen to Hound of the Baskervilles if you want a long one. That's about 5 hours long. There we are. I've got other long ones, but this is a short one. That's the way it goes. Anyway, I should... now, excuse me. One of the things... many of the people listening to me I know are American. And one of the things Americans say is happy holidays. Whereas we say happy Christmas, traditionally. And I think a lot of British people think that's what are they going on about? It's a, but I think traditionally, well, not traditionally, that's a kind of oxymoron, isn't it? But historically, the USA was a far more multicultural place. So people, who were Jewish have Hanukkah, and that's around the same period. Diwali's been, but people have other cultures have festivals of lights. And of course, you have at the same time, you have Thanksgiving, which we don't. So it is actually a multiplicity of holidays. And because we have Jewish people here who celebrate Hanukkah. I walked past a menorah the other day, which was nice to see. So that's why I say happy holidays. So I'm not going to be chauvinistic and say happy Christmas, though I do wish you happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year. But happy holidays for people who have other traditions and faiths. There we are. Okay. And maybe back before 2025. If not, you know why. I'm lying with my little bell ringing for Sheila and mince pies.